Welcome everyone, today we have another special Diablo 4 guide. As you guys can see behind me, we have a lot of detailed notes and also information with Diablo 4 with all of the classes. So you can see there's a lot of comparison of different stats for different classes. And what I want to do in this video is, I want to provide you guys with a lot of detailed summaries of the classes of how good they are at the end game. So over here you guys can see we have a lot of Paragon boards and also most of them are field help. I want to see what are the potential of the classes at level 100 and what are the bonus stats for each of the classes for each of the build I would recommend. So here you can see the Necromancer will do a lot of pure damage in terms of bonus damage, and while the Rogue will do additional damage against elites, while the Barbarians will be dealing a lot of physical damage. So we'll be able to compare all 5 classes, and there's a lot of additional method of using these 2 over here. Now if you guys remember my previous video, which we talk about which of the best class to start the Diablo 4 launch by comparing classes, over here we have compared a lot of stats, and if you haven't seen this video, definitely have a look. We talk about a lot of good consideration in terms of PvP, in terms of co-op, and in terms of trading in the game, and also grabbing different gears. So what I want to do in extension for this video is, I have perked a lot of builds for different classes, and finally I want to see the stats of the classes once they reach the end game. And usually it takes us 1 to 2 months to get a class to level 100, right? And we want to know what is the final build, what are we expecting with each of the class. And in doing so, what I did was I perked out the Necromancer and I started to count all the buffs and all the debuffs and all the additional bonus damage for each of the parts. And this way we can be comparing for each of the classes to see what is this class good at and which of the class you want to pick for the end game. Now there's actually a lot of usage for this particular Excel, and what I want to do in the future is, if I make a guide for you guys, I'll be displaying something similar if I have the time to show you guys what is this build good at. Is this build good at doing pure damage? Is this build good at doing elite damage? Or if this build is good at doing fire damage or burning damage? And this will allow you guys to adjust and also play accordingly. Because if this build is good at doing elite damage, it's really good for farming, right? But if this build does a lot of player damage, then you can use this one for PvP as well. Now just to make things extra special, I have broken down the availability of the bonus stats into 2 categories. So here you can see this is what you get if you go for the Glyph at level 20 and also the knots inside of the Glyph within the range of the Glyph, like over here. And this shows you all the stats you get, right? And over here you get to see the stats you get if you go for the pathing of the blue, rare and also legendary knots. So this way, you can be deciding that if you're going for the legendaries or you're going for the glyphs. And for different builds, you might be picking both of them. And sometimes you can pick one of them. So this gives you a rough comparison of what are the stats you get if you go for the special knots and what are the stats you get if you go for the glyphs at the endgame. And finally guys, one of the usage of this particular build is I get to list all the sources of bonus damage for your character. So this is a screenshot back into beta. You get to see a lot of characters have vulnerability damage, versus slowed, versus close damage, and also damage over time, elemental damage. So this particular calculator or this Excel allows you to see what is your class doing bonus damage with. And most of the time in games like Diablo, what is happening is damage sources from different sources of damage stacks multiplicatively, while the same source of damage is addictive. So what that means is you want to be getting different damage sources. Let's say if you're doing pure damage and also physical damage, you want to get different sources of bonus damage, and this allows you to do more damage. But if you're just stacking into one damage like 258%, this might not be as great compared to other sources of damage that's 80, 60 or 100. So this way you're multiplying them, while this one you're just adding on to the damage for critical strike. So hopefully this video and also this type of guide in the future will help you guys understand the damage and get the most damage out of the game for each of your classes and also each of the build. Now if you guys want to take this particular Excel and make it use for yourself and also change the numbers for your own build, it takes a while to input because I actually manually input everything. You can come over to Files, click Make a Copy, and this will allow you to make your own copy of the Excel. Because if you do not make a copy, you cannot use Excel and also change the values. But in the future, I'll build more Excel for you guys to see different class comparison and also different build comparison. Now I know I talk a lot at the start, so let's get into the Excel and let's have a look at each of the classes at the end game. So now do keep in mind guys, at the end of the video we'll talk about how to achieve this one. Even though you can see the perks over here at level 83, but ideally if I path them, which I did over here, it will take you to level 100. So this is definitely the end game build. And likely for most of the classes, you can achieve a maximum of 4 boards. And this allows you to reach into the glyphs for 5 of the glyphs, because you have one over here. So you can reach about 4 or 5 of the glyphs, and also about 3 of the legendaries. If you're going for the final legendary, likely you can't go for the glyph. And yes guys, in case you're curious, I have those links available for you in the description of the video, so you can definitely have a look. But for most of the other classes that is not Necromancer, I didn't pick them out because I still haven't had time to min and max the pathway. But similarly, we'll use the comparison for the Necromancer. This definitely works. So we'll talk about this at the end of the video. In case you're wondering about the full pathway, I have the link available for you guys as well. Now coming over to the fun part, so this is when we get to compare each of the classes for the end game. So in case you guys are still wondering which of the build you want to go into, or which of the class you want to go into, here is some of the examples. Now this guide is made possible because of the previous 2 videos, which I look at the Paragon board into more details, and those are all the Paragon stats, right? And also I look into all the glyphs into more details. So over here you can see the Paragon and also glyphs. And if you haven't seen those videos, it's really nice to look at them to see what is happening. And because my videos, I'm following on from the previous video, so I'm building it onto what I have built for each of the classes. So for the Necromancer, we're going with a Sacrificial Necromancer that's dealing bone damage. So this is going to be a Bone Necromancer. For the Druid, we're going for Earth Druid that gains 100% critical chances with a proc of the Earthing Might. And also this Druid will be dealing Earth damage, Companion damage, and also Poison damage. For the Barbarian, we'll be doing Rend and also Bleeding damage as in physical damage. We'll also be going into Berserk damage for the Barbarian. For the Rogue, it's quite straightforward. We'll be doing the Twisting Blade build, and this will be the Shadow Imbuement. And finally, for the sources, we'll be going for the Fire Burning sources and also dealing a lot of the burn damage and also fire damage. So if we have a look at the stats over here, this is the stats from all the level 20 glyphs and also knots in the range. So I'll give you guys a quick example. So if we come over to the Necromancer over here, you can see what I did was I counted all the stats that you gain from within the section, but only offensive stats. So here you can see the Necromancer would be giving bonus to all the magic knots within the range. And this allows the Necromancer to deal 17% more damage, 17% more damage, 17% more damage, together with another 20% more damage if the requirement is met. Now, because it's the end game, I'm assuming you guys have met the requirements. So you can see the numbers over here. I've been adding those damages together, and this allows me to count everything within the knot of the glyph. And of course, guys, this is the same method I did for everything. So within the regions of the glyph, you get to see all the values over here. And this allows you to decide whether you want to go for legendaries and also other perks within the knots, or you want to go for the glyphs. We'll talk about this at the end of the video as well. So right away we can see Necromancer deals a lot of pure bonus damage, which is really good. I like classes that deals this, and most of the classes at the start of the grid, you can see that they gain this. So this is a source of pure flat bonus damage, and I like to go onto this path. But unfortunately for the Barbarian and also the sources, their path will actually give them physical damage and also non-physical damage. So I'll show you guys an example over here. You can see the sources at the start, you get non-physical damage, and this is the case for Barbarian for the physical damage. Now if you follow my pathway and also my glyphs, you can see I can gain a lot of bonus damage against elites. And this is the same build for the Necromancer and also for the Rogue. I'll come over to one of the examples to show you guys what I mean by that. So if we come over here, we have a glyph that provides 240% bonus to the rare knots. And one of the best rare knot I want is going to be the plus 109% bonus damage against elites. So those two are really big highlights for the Necromancer and also sources. Unfortunately for the other 3 classes, they don't really have this within the range of the glyphs. But what they do have is, on the other side, you can see they have ways of getting more bonus damage against elites. Now because for each of the class, it is very hard to compare exactly how they work because they have different functions and also different things. Like for the Necromancer and also Druid, I'm assuming we can be a little tanky. So while we're healthy, we deal about 53% more damage. While for the Barbarian, you want to be bleeding enemies. You want to have your damage over time onto them. And if you're wielding a sword, which is a specialization of Barbarian, so if you guys haven't seen this one, this is the video. We talk about the details of the Barbarian. It's actually a lot of information, right? So we talk about the specialization of Barbarian. And if you're going for the bleeding build, you do want a 2-hand sword, which allows you to deal another 30% more damage after killing bleeding enemies. So yes guys, I'm pretty knowledgeable with each of the classes now by doing those guides for you guys and also for myself. And as for the Rogue, there's a special mechanics about dodging and also getting bonus damage after dodging. So if I come over to the Rogue calculator over here, what you're going to see is there is going to be a special perk, legendary perk over here, that Rogue will gain 100% dodge rate after having Inner Sight, and this is going to be the specialization for the build with the Twisting Blade. So while you're 100% dodging, there's going to be a lot of perks that you can be gaining and gaining damage while you're dodging. So this is very interesting for defensive and also offensiveness. And finally, for the sources, you can see that you can be doing a lot more damage against burning enemies. So this is my fire burning sources. And yes guys, we have the links available for you guys to have a look at the build. And what I do very soon is I'll make a build focus guide from level 1 to 100 for the skill trees, for the talent trees, for the choice of legendaries, and also for the specialization. So it'll be a full build for you guys for each of those. But right now, in case you guys want to compare, we have lots of good numbers. Now as we keep going, you can see there's a lot of bonus damage for the sources in terms of fire damage and also burning damage. And if we go into the build specific damage, so this is more things into more detail, right? What you're going to see is there's a lot of focus on dealing vulnerability damage, critical strike damage, and also to injured and also not healthy foes for the Necromancer. And in case you guys are wondering, injured foes are the enemies who are below 35% HP, and also healthy foes are the foes above 80% HP. And not healthy foes are enemies under 80% HP, so there's a lot of numbers. Now because we'll be going with a shift-shifting druid that deals a lot of critical damage, so here you can see the druid when shift-shifting have a bonus 20% critical chance with one of the legendary perks that you can see in one of those guides over here. You get to see them in the links. And here we'll deal additional damage with core skills and also a lot more damage when you critical hit. So over 260% damage just from the glyphs over here. And this is actually really good. So we talk about this in more details in this video. Actually, this is the video. So yeah, in this video, we'll talk about in more details. In case you guys are wondering, yes, we're using a 240% multiplier for the glyph onto the druid for bonus damage. And because we try to deal a bit of poison damage, you can see we have damage against poison enemies with your bonus damage, and also damage in the werebear form, which I plan to have with Pulverize. Now as for the Barbarian, you have a bit of chance to critical hit with bleeding. You have a bit of bleeding damage and also a bit of physical damage over time. Nothing too special. For the Rogue though, there's some really big numbers. So the Rogue deals more damage with your critical strike with your core skills with Twisting Blade. You also deal more vulnerability damage, and here you'll be dealing a lot more damage to the imbued skill. So after casting imbuement, you'll be empowering your skill. And this is really good. 153, 134, and also another 20% of potency. Now finally for the sources, you can see that the sources will deal another 172.8 bonus critical damage. So the burning mage sources is also a critical sources. And you can see the small vulnerability damage, and overall you get to see the damage numbers, right? But it's a little hard to compare. Now just as a rough comparison, I decided to add up all those numbers that you see from above. So what I'll do is, actually I'll make this one a little better, so it's like in the middle. So what I want to do is, I want to give you guys a very rough, not informative comparison. So here we're just adding up all the numbers over here. This is not really how you do it. Usually you multiply them, right? So I'm just adding them up together to see the bonus damage. So you can see for the Necromancer, it's about 600%, 500% for the Druid, about 400% for the Barbarian, over 860% for the Rogue. It's kind of broken, I know, and there's a lot of different sources. And finally, it is about 500% for the sources. Now, of course, there's a lot of things like critical chances, attack speed that is also added addictively, and that is not informative. So this is just a rough figure of what are the stats and also bonuses you get if you go in for the glyphs, and also if your glyphs are level 20 for each of the classes at the end game. Now, if you guys haven't subscribed, it is a really good time to do so, because I'll be covering tons of Diablo 4 related topics and also videos and also guides. We'll be looking to the top meta builds, no-meta builds, leveling up, and also Paragon tricks. We're also looking to the latest events and also official updates, and also changes to different characters and also different builds in the game. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and also turn the notification on, because a lot of you who are watching the videos have not subscribed. You can see 80% of the viewers who are watching our videos have not subscribed. So make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for the latest update for Diablo 4. Now, alternatively, if you guys are pathing your skill trees and you want to go for legendary path instead of going for the glyphs, it is very straightforward, and you also get a lot of raw damage right away. because the glyphs, you have to level up the glyphs. For the legendary path and also for the other paths, you get those stats right over here. And you can see those stats over here. So you can see I've been adding up those stats as well. Overall, those stats are a little lower compared to what you get from the glyphs, which is understandable because the glyphs have to be leveled to level 20, while the legendary, the blue, and also the rare, the dots over here, you get them right away if you get to them. Now, we won't be going through all the numbers into details, but if you guys do have a look, there's some interesting ones. So one of the most interesting ones is Necromancer deals a lot of pure bonus damage. And here you can see a few of the classes like Barbarian can get a lot of bonus damage to elites right away. But Barbarian actually do not have the bonus damage to elites within the glyph. So this is the trade-off. So notice Necromancer and Rogue have those, but if you come over here, they actually don't get much of those over here. So this is a bit of trade-off. Now, even though some of the numbers for the sources can be a little underwhelming with the legendary nodes and everything, one thing I want to highlight is going to be this tag over here. So sources will have a special legendary, which if you follow my build, this is actually going to be pretty epic. So it is hidden over here, and this means your burning damage is increased by 40% of your critical strike damage, and even more with every 20 intelligence you have. Just on the board over here, we have 419 intelligence, and I'm sure you can get a lot of intelligence for items and everything. So let's say if we have like 600 intelligence, notice this number will actually go up. This number will also go up depending on your critical chance of critical damage. So what we're looking at is going to be core skill critical damage. We're going to look at additional source of critical damage, and also we're going to look at more critical damage that is available to the sources. And this is not considering the critical damage that is available from your weapons and also legendaries. So this one can scale very, very high. Now over here, there's a lot of more build-specific additional bonus damage, like the Necromancer deals like 175% more damage against injured enemies. And there's a lot of different bonus over here. Just as a rough comparison, guys, again, this is not very informative because I'm adding them. Here I added all the percentage over here. You can see the Necromancer is about 560, which is actually pretty high for the bonus knots for the Necromancer. And yes, the pathways over here, you can achieve everything at 100 level with 20 radon. And most of the other classes is pretty straightforward. Because I scaled the sources up a little bit, you can see the numbers go up. So the sources have a really good potential to be even stronger with better weapons. And you can see for the other classes, it's around 300-ish, so they're pretty close to each other. The Rogue though, remember the Rogue guys? This one's like 800, and the Necromancer is about 600. So those were two of the very strong class in beta, and they still look very strong in the endgame. Now finally, as a final message, what I want to share with you guys is, because I only had the time to path out the Necromancer, so the Necromancer without pathing it out, it's 83 levels, and once I path the entire, kind of optimization pathway to get everything, it will take a level 100. So we're using the Necromancer as reference. If you see the build over here says 83, this means it is probably achievable at level 100. And if you see the build over here says 85, this means a part of the pathways might not be achievable at level 100. And finally, if you see the Rogue at level 88, this means I overperked. And this means definitely a few of the bonuses cannot be achieved. So this also, kind of explain why the Rogue is so high over here. Because likely we can't achieve all of this within the level of 100 and also 20 Reno. So just so you guys know. But I just want to perk everything to see, right? And of course, the sources is at level 81. And what that means is the sources can perk into more bonuses because only at level 83 do we cap out with level 100. So here's a comparison I have for you guys. So before perking out, I'm at level 83. And once I path that out, I'll be level 100 Necromancer for the same build. Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Oh boy, guys, each time I make the videos, you have no idea how long it takes me. I need to make shorter videos and easier videos. So I manually calculated every bit of the stats, every bit of the bonus, and multiplied and also deducted, counted the dexterity for every part of the build. So this whole table alone took me like 4 or 5 hours, and even building this one took me longer. And I really want to make this for you guys because it will be useful in multiple ways. You can compare a single build to see what sorts of damage you have in the future. And I'll make this for you guys in the future for different builds. And then you can compare this one compared to this one. Like you can compare the same class for different build. And this will be really good, right? You can compare different classes to see which class to play. And finally, you can look into weakness of the class. Let's say if my Necromancer, I want to deal more damage in terms of multiplicity. Maybe I can go with damage against close enemies because I don't see a lot on my Paragon level. And this will give me additional sources of damage without additively adding to what I already have. So this will allow us to build into stats that is not going to be kind of capping out and also sealing out in terms of damage. So for the Druid, I probably won't go for critical damage. I'll go for maybe close range damage. Maybe I'll go for damage against elites because you don't see a lot over here. And maybe I go for pure bonus damage. So this way you can build your build better in the endgame. So let me know what you guys think about this pretty good guide. It took me a while, and I do think we're a little early for this one, but sometimes if you at the start of the game, you decide to build, you decide a class, you want to get into the game, I want to make sure your time is worth the invested. I don't want you guys to play for hours and days and months and realize that this is not what you wanted, right? So I'm still helping myself to decide which of the build and which of the class I want to play, and I think this is the best way. Very soon guys, we'll have a build specific guide for each of the classes. And yes guys, if you like those videos, make sure you subscribe and like, and also leave a nice comment. And I do have links for Patreon and also donations, because I work so hard. I was like, yeah, there are the links. No need to donate, guys, it's okay. Just if you guys are financially stable and if you're financially comfortable, if you want to help me out, definitely help me out through those links. And those are the best way to supporting me financially. Now also, before we finish, I really want to know in the comments, which of the build do you think is a little broken looking at those numbers? So after looking at this guide video, and also looking at those numbers, which of the classes and also which of the build are you guys most interested in? I know I have only provided you guys with one build for each of the class. I'll try to provide at least 2 or 3 build to level 100 for each of the class for you guys before the launch. I will be theory crafting a lot of those and to get you guys prepared for the launch. Now before you go, and if you guys didn't know, we have a new YouTube channel. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and check out the behind the scenes and also fun clips and also more stories about us. And then you get to know me a little more personally instead of just reading the news and also the games, right? So I want to share a little bit more with you guys. So make sure you check this channel out if you're interested about Matt and also Uni. She's really funny too, and she's really shy. So I want to give her a surprise and do a shout out for the new channel to get some subscribers. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time.